Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home in the rain. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It's a lovely day here in suburban Chicago, though it is raining quite a bit. In the realm of it raining, I am trying this recording. I may end up having to scrap the whole thing because I haven't done a recording in the rain before, at least not one this vigorous. And I definitely expect that the audio recorder is going to be picking up the sounds of rain on the umbrella. And if that makes it unpleasant to listen to, I'll scrap the whole episode. But I thought I'd give it a try anyway. I am walking home, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to do a board game espresso triple shot. For those of you new to the podcast, a board game espresso triple shot is where I talk in a quick manner, or expressly, about 3 games I've tried recently for the first time, and 1 game I've dusted off. The triple shot is the 3 games. The dusted off is, I don't know, it's a cake pop. You're getting along with your espresso. So today I'll be talking about 3 games I tried recently, all of them on the same day. I had a free Saturday where my family, or my wife and daughter were gone, and my son was doing his own thing, and so I invited a couple friends over and we played several different games, and here are 3 of them. First one I'm going to talk about is Irish Gauge. Irish Gauge is designed by Annabelle Holland with art by Ian O'Toole, and it was published by Capstone Games, and before that Winsome Games. I believe that it's a republish of an older title, perhaps. I'm not exactly sure, but Annabelle Holland is of course the lead designer for Hollandspiel, so she has a well-established reputation. Irish Gauge is essentially a more accessible 18xx game than most people have played. In Irish Gauge, you are buying stock in train companies and advancing the train tracks to try to maximize the payout and value of those train stocks. Meanwhile, there's other people also claiming train stocks as well, and the person who has the most shares of the train stock gets the most payout, and so on. It is a crisply designed product that looks like a lot of the Ian O'Toole designed train games. If you saw the design for the Age of Steam that O'Toole did, this feels a lot like that. It's easy to read and easy to play, not all that flashy though, which is okay. It's not meant to be. The art on the cover is pretty, and the idea is that you are building railroads in Ireland. I thought this game was fine. I had a good time with it, but it did confirm to me a basic aspect of my nature as a gamer, which is that I don't really like train stock games. The theme doesn't really do much for me, and while the gameplay is interesting during the game, it's not something that I find myself jonesing to pursue afterward. I imagine when people have a train game and they're like, I really want to play this, I'll be happy to play it. Or when they're like, this one does something different, you should really check it out, I'll check it out. But overall, it's not generally going to be my bag. The interesting tension at the heart of Irish Gauge has to do with the competition to get your foothold in different cities and your competition to get your foothold in different companies so that you can maximize the payout of the companies you have your foothold in and minimize the payout of the companies that you don't. Worth checking out if train games and stock games are something you enjoy. And it's beautifully done. At least the newer edition is. So that's Irish Gauge from Annabelle Holland. Next up is Time Pirates. Time Pirates is published in the year 2000, designed by Alan Moon and Aaron Weisblum. I don't know who Aaron Weisblum is. Alan Moon, of course, most famous for Ticket to Ride, but has published a number of other games as well. Also published by Rio Grande Games. I've mentioned Time Pirates as a game I got for free at Origins in 2017. They were just going around handing it out. I think they were doing that because the cover art is so laughably bad. Like, I feel bad for the artist, the credited artist in the game, because it's really hard to see what's going on in any kind of positive light. The game itself is a decent set collection game in which you are thematically zooming around through time, trying to find and capture artifacts that will be a productive and exciting addition to your collection of time traveling artifacts. The things that you find have, in some cases, an interesting shape. In other cases, they are grotesque and perhaps offensive. They're the statue that you get from Africa, the image that represents the thing that you get in Africa, the ancient artifact, is a sort of traditional African fertility idol, which in itself isn't inherently offensive, but when used by white game designers to encapsulate the art of Africa, feels very exoticized and limiting. The game itself involves players trying to collect sets of icons of the same color, of tokens of the same color. When you get enough tokens of the same color, then you can go to the future and sell those tokens for points to collectors in the future. That's kind of the game. You are running around trying to collect these sets, and then there is a time cop. I can't remember what the actual name of the figure is, but it's another pawn that is moving around in a somewhat predictable way. And if it lands where you are, it confiscates one of your items, and you can't travel into the future from that space. So you have to spend a turn moving away. And it could chase you, and then you're stuck following it again, or with it following you. The game is pretty simple to learn, and it's got some interesting mechanisms in terms of the way that the sets accumulate on the board, the way that the time travel agent moves around, the way that the rounds end. There's 3 rounds, and once the round ends in a couple different ways, but one of them is once the time travel agent has moved a certain number of times, then the round will end. All of this works pretty well. I mean, as a game, it's fine. Like if somebody said, hey, do you want to play Time Pirates? And it had a more palatable theme or production, I guess, production rather than theme, because the theme's fine. I'd probably say, sure, it's a light set collection game with a little bit of take that and a little bit of push your luck. It works. But the graphic design is so bad that I don't want to play this game again. And it's going on the trade pile. I can't believe I would be able to sell it. Maybe if I can find an Alan Moon diehard out there who doesn't already have it, perhaps. But other than that. So that's a disappointing play of Time Pirates by Alan Moon, published by Rio Grande Games. Oh, Alan Moon and Aaron Weisblum. Don't make Moon take credit for that whole thing himself. I always like to spend a little bit of time talking about a flashback game. And this game is the flashbackiest of flashback games. There are few games I can think of where I can creditably say, I haven't played that in 20 years, but I do want to play it again. And that was the case with this game. This game has sort of moved into my consciousness again because we have a couple regulars at our Tuesday night game club who play it. I mean, it is their game. They aren't really hobby gamers, but they do come, and often, most of the time, what they're playing is this game. And then, because they've been playing it, other people have tried it, and they're like, oh yeah, there's a reason this is a classic. So we've actually seen quite a few plays of Rummikub at our local game club. And I decided to give it a whirl or a couple weeks ago. So Rummikub, if you've never played it, is a classic game in which you have a tray full of tiles, and the tiles represent numbers, and they represent numbers 1 through 13, and colors. There are 4 colors, and then there are a couple wild tokens that represent any number in any color, depending where they're placed. Now, the 4 different colors and the 13 numbers should sound familiar to you because that is the makeup of a standard deck of playing cards. And you notice that the first 2 syllables of this game are rummy. So this game is sort of loosely based on rummy. The way the game works is that you get a bunch of tiles to start, and then you're trying to make sets and runs using the classic rummy definition of those things that total up to 50 points. Now, points come from the value of the tiles. So a run of 4 13s of different colors would give you 52 points, right? 13 times 4 is 52. I think that to begin with, you have to make at least 30 points worth of moves in one turn. So you have to be able to put out sets and runs equal to 30 points worth. So if you're getting a lot of 2s, you could have a very robust set of 2s. You could have 2 sets of 4 2s, and that only gets you 16 points. That's not enough to go out to start the game. Once you start the game, then you're allowed to play your other tiles on your turn. Basically on your turn, you're either playing tiles or you're drawing a tile. If you're playing tiles, very simply, the way you do that is you play the tiles out onto the board in a way that continues to make sets and runs. Now the fun part of Rummikub is that once you're out, once you've gone out onto the board, then you're allowed to play by rearranging all of the different sets and runs that are out on the board in order to make your sets and runs for your turn. So as a very simple example, let's say there was a group of 5 4s of 4 different colors, there's 4 4s, one in each color, 4 5s, one in each color, and let's say that you had a 6. What you could do is take the 4 and the 5 from those sets, because 3 or 4 is a legitimate number for a set. You could take the 4 and the 5 of the color that matches your 6, and then you can play your 6 and add the 4 and the 5 from those sets to make a run that includes your 6. That's a pretty simple example, but you can do a lot of really interesting things once you have a big set of tiles out there. You know, it's actually pretty fun. It's a game I hadn't played in a long time, and I'll confess, I thought it was a sort of musty old classic, and it is pretty limited in what it is. Every time you play, it's basically going to be the same game, but it is a really interesting mental puzzle and a good time. And there's just enough luck in it that if you're doing badly, you can blame your draws from the tiles. So that's Rummikub, designed by Ephraim Hertzano. And I think Pressman published the edition that we played with. It's been published all over the world in a lot of different editions, so that's Rummikub. Finally, the last game I'm going to talk about today is Kites. Kites is a game by Kevin Hamano with art by Beth Sobel, published by Floodgate Games in the US. Kites is a real-time cooperative game in which the goal is to fly your kites for the whole course of the game. I don't remember exactly how long the game goes. Oh, is it a limited number of times? I don't think it is. I think the limit is the cards. So on your turn, you are going to play a card, and the card shows either a color, and the card shows some combination of the kites. The kites in the game are represented by sand timers. So on your turn, you're going to play a card, and then you're going to flip that sand timer. And the goal is, once the game starts, once we've put all 4 kites in the air, then you have to keep all the 4 kites in the air by keeping their sand timers running by judiciously flipping their timers at specific moments. There are a couple different obstacle cards that you can put in the deck that will limit talking, or they will limit flipping, or they will limit various things for a short while. But then the rest of it is about drawing cards, flipping things, passing the turn, and doing that in a way that you try to keep the kites in the air. We played 3 games of kites, I believe. The first game was a disaster because we didn't really understand what we were doing, and we put in all the hardest cards. The second round, we scaled it back to easy and played and won, and then the third round, I think we added 1 difficulty card and we won again. If I recall, I could be wrong, but it's raining, so I don't want to get my phone out again and check how I did. Overall, Kites is a great real-time game. I have enough of those, and there aren't enough people in my gaming life, at least at home, who want to play real-time games, so I'm not tempted to buy it myself, but I would love for us to have a copy at our game club. I think Kites is the kind of game that would get a lot of play there. It's a good 15-minute quick burn dice game with a lot of heart. Or it's a lot of fun anyway. So that's Kites from Floodgate Games. So what games have you been playing recently? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and join the conversation. Have you played any of the games I've played? Do you have the same opinions of them that I do? I'd love to hear those answers, and you can share them over there. If you want to message me individually, you can send a message to Wombat929 on Board Game Geek or Brendan@rattleboxgames.com. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope your walk isn't as rainy as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.